Welcome to Beyond the Walls podcast. I'm your host, Kylie, and I am so excited to be able to have this conversation with you to help teach you tools, ideas, support on how to go beyond your walls too. Are you tired of feeling stuck and trapped and like a victim in your own life? Maybe you need to find a new way to look at it. Look at your situation from a different angle. Maybe we need to learn and take a look to see how we can re-choose or recreate a life that is going to bring you joy and purpose and feel free and exciting. So let's get started on today's message. Hey everybody. So today on the podcast, I want to talk about the experience we have of being trapped behind these walls. It's been a minute since I've talked about it, but my business, my coaching business, is called Beyond the Walls. Why Beyond the Walls? Because I feel like there's so much of our life. There's so much meaning that we've given it. We put so much weight on our past experiences that if we're not careful, if we don't know how to handle them or repair them or to find our way through it, those things become walls. They become barriers between us being able to be fully seen and fully heard, fully accepted and supported by the other people in our lives. Not only do we not get to experience that kind of a relationship from other people, but when we're trapped behind these walls, they don't get to experience that relationship with us either. You miss out, but so do other people. You know, there is this passage in the Bible that says that we should look not only to the interest of others, but to the interest of ourselves. And I think it's easy for us to go from one extreme to the other. And it's either all about me or it's all about you. And when we're in one of those extremes, it's generally going to be at the expense of the other person, right? When it's all about me trying to protect me and I have to get something or I'm going to miss out on something, we're not thinking about our impact on other people, or we're viewing them in a very negative, hostile way. Like they're preventing me, they're stopping me, they're a barrier, right? Like somehow we can't have because these outside people are a threat. Can you relate to that? Or maybe we value so much of feeling like we need to support other people and encourage other people and we want to have such an impact, or we're working so hard not to be selfish that we become so self-deprecating, so hurtful and isolating to ourselves, devaluing of ourselves and our needs. We don't even know how to relate to that world. I can imagine that at one time or another, and maybe this is you right now, where you are or you have been one of those ends. And a lot of the work that I do here through my coaching, through this podcast, through Instagram, is being able to continue to give you the tools and the resources so that you can go beyond those walls. And we can't really go beyond them until we even know what kind of walls we have. And I think, sure, at a gut level, at a heart level, at a general generic level, I think there's so much just humanness that we all experience that at the end of the day, they really are just kind of these universal things. But we get so trapped up in our circumstances. And it's in that kind of space that we isolate, or we either tell ourselves that nobody will understand, or I don't understand them. And so I can't help you because I haven't been in your exact shoes. And you can't help me because you haven't been in my exact shoes. And I think there's so much more gray space than we really even ever realize or can verbalize, because we give into fear so much. We give into being just stuck and not even knowing why we're stuck. And so a lot of the work, that's what we do here at Beyond the Walls, is being able to realize and talk through some of these walls. And so I thought today, I want to share with you some of those. If you've been an avid listener through the podcast, then you probably have heard some of these things, but man, you guys, I can't believe it. This is episode 83. I cannot believe how many conversations I've had on this podcast. In the beginning, I had so much with my sister, Romika, and that was so much fun. I enjoyed having that kind of collaborative conversation. And since then, with her, I'm needing and choosing to step out, having to figure out how to do it a different way. And as the extrovert, I love the connection with other people. So if you look back on my recent history, there's a whole lot more guest interviews than just me talking by myself. I want to hear you. I want to see you. I want to see your face. And so this is an area that I have to really grow in. I have to be able to push past and to not give in to those feelings of like, I don't know who's out there. I don't know who's listening. I want to hear back from somebody. So bear with me as I figure out how to be a lone host and being able to share these kind of conversations with you. And I'm here for it. I think I just celebrated a birthday not too long ago. And it's always a great time to kind of reflect back on the previous year and how things were going. And this has been such a hard year for me, you guys. I don't know about you, but it's also normal. It's okay to have tough seasons. They're not all good and they're not all bad. And we learn a lot in those seasons, but they can be really painful. And if we don't have people in our lives to help us process, if we don't have a spiritual anchor to be able to pray, to have a higher vision for us, if we don't have healthy tools to help us navigate those emotions, that's really where we get stuck and we get trapped. And so I think even in saying that, if you're at the beginning stage where you've never dealt with any of your walls, you didn't even realize you did have walls. And now you're like, oh, okay, maybe I'm not feeling super free and secure and I'm not feeling empowered in my life. I'm trapped. I'm a victim. I'm stuck. I don't know where to go. And you've never done it before. Would love to work with you. There's a lot of places to be able to explore. And that's what I kind of want to talk through with you today about which those different kind of walls that there are. But know this, that if you've been somebody who's been on this journey, that you have already broken free, had some major transformations in your life, has had lots of healing and experiences that have brought you a lot of freedom, and you've broken down a lot of those walls, new walls are going to be tempted to grow again. We're going to be tempted to build new ones for new reasons. We're going to be tempted to bring the old ones back. It's that like creature of habit and comfortability. Like we just go right back to the way things used to be. It's comfortable and familiar. And so just know that it's normal, that we have to stay intentional for the rest of our lives to keep healing, to keep growing. And so I say that not to be like doom and gloom, but how about could it look like if we just accepted that as something that is just a part of life? Kind of like dishes and laundry. We're going to keep dirtying dishes and they're going to need to keep getting cleaned. And we're going to keep dirtying our clothes and they're going to need to get cleaned. If we're being mature about it, we don't throw a fit in shock and horror that we have to do laundry again, that the dishes are clean, that we have to unload the dishwasher again. My son, we let him mow our lawn for an allowance. And he's still at that young stage where he's like shocked every week. Like, I can't believe I have to mow again. Right. And you're like, it's so easy to see it in our kids. And we're like, oh my gosh, could you please just stop making this harder on you and me? And can't you just like accept, like, why are you surprised? And I think that's probably the word that I'm thinking of is like, we're so surprised and shocked that we're upset again, that another wall got built up, that we were hurt. And now all of a sudden, all our defenses are up and we're feeling the need to protect ourselves. And it does that same circular kind of work to go back, figure out what your upsets are, figure out what is really going on, and then move forward by making an intentional decision. And so just know that it's normal, it's human, it's realistic, right? If you've seen Lego Movie 2, I love the Lego movies, by the way. If you haven't seen them, you should go check them out. And then that kind of is an insight on my personality. That kind of humor Love it. But in the second movie, they have a theme song that was in the first one that was talking about having, working together and it being this fantastic thing. In Lego Movie 2, they have this theme song and it's called Everything is Awesome, right? And they're talking about teamwork and everything's just fantastic and happy and go lucky. And in the second movie, some things happen and they end up changing some of those lyrics into unrealistic expectations. Like, it's unrealistic to expect everything to be awesome all the time. It's just not going to happen. Okay, end rant. So, what are some of these walls that I'm talking about? Okay, so from a big picture, I think all of us, it's not about our circumstances. It's not about the little gritty, nitty gritty details of like the exact, did we grow up the same way? Are we the same age? Are we the same demographic? Are we the same race? Like all of these things that we feel like, were you abused in the exact same way that I was? Otherwise, we can't relate. It's not those things. Because at the end of the day, we all have these feelings. We all have these desires. We all have this need and want to be seen and heard and accepted. So across the board, some walls that would apply to everybody, I would say, are these 6 areas. And they are boundaries, right? How do we need boundaries? Are they healthy boundaries? Why did our boundaries get there? Are they serving us well? Is it actually a healthy boundary or is it a fearful hiding boundary? Do we need new boundaries? Do they need recreated? And until we can actually even put words to know, like, oh, a boundary was made, then it makes it really difficult to even be able to analyze what needs to change. And being able to really have those kind of conversations is really helpful. The second wall is miscommunication. So much hurt, damage, broken relationships, upsets and frustrations happen through miscommunication. And it's so easy to do. There was an episode I did a while back and I was sharing an analogy that I heard from somebody and they were using the phrase, the chicken's ready to eat. Okay. So what's the image that you just got in your head with the chicken's ready to eat? I'm going to give you 2 possibilities. Can you believe there's more than one interpretation to that sentence? So here's at least 2. There could be more, but I'm going to give you at least 2. So it could be a situation where you're in your home and you just made chicken for your family. And you're basically saying like, dinner's ready. Everybody come join me at the dinner table. The chicken is ready to eat. Another possibility, you're a farmer. And you got up in the morning and you're like, I got to go out because the chickens are ready to eat. I got to go feed my chickens, right? Like, who's eating? So can you imagine how many? Actually, let me back up. Can you imagine the possibility that the situation, the sentence, the interpretation, the event that has you paralyzed right now, what if it's based on a miscommunication? Like, what if it was a misunderstanding and you took it all the way over here and the person who was involved in this situation is way over here? And both of you are just as offended by the other one because it's such an extremely different interpretation of what happened. There's a way to clean that up. There's a lot of other areas of miscommunication that we can dig into in coaching. The third wall that I talk probably the most about on a regular basis, and I already kind of talked about it here, was just upsets in general and giving you tools about how to even deal with your upsets, how to give word to your upsets. If you don't even know what you're upset about, you can't clean it up. It might take a different tool. It might take a different approach. It might be you're upset because there was a miscommunication or it's a boundaries issue, right? Like there's lots of reasons for our upsets. Are we upset because this is the 20th time this has happened and now we're twice as upset because of all of the times? Or is it an isolated situation? Or is this, right? Like, is it a repeat offender? Are we upset because something did happen or because it didn't happen? Are we upset with ourselves or are we upset with other people? Or are we upset with the world? Okay, and those are just high level upsets, right? There's so many layers in our upsets to deal with. Another wall that I talk about is the wall of comfort. And what I mean by that, and there's several episodes, especially early on, we have a ton on boundaries and a ton on comfort and character. And that's what I want to attach it with, is comfort or character. And I was reading a parenting book when my kids were a little bit younger, and it was talking about just the need to be able to instill character in them. And we cannot protect our comfort while working on our character. It's one or the other. We're either avoiding the discipline, we don't want the pain, we don't want the discomfort, we want the ease of life, we want to just ignore it, brush it under a rug, minimize it, not address it. But if we're going to deal with character issues, we have to have some pain, some discomfort, some confusion. It doesn't mean it has to be traumatizing, but it's not going to be easy. And think about in your past. I want you to think about some things that you know that you've done that are hard. Okay? Like, it could be challenging and difficult. Not all of those hard things were painful. You didn't resist all of those hard things, right? Like maybe having a baby, right? That's hard work. It's painful. There is no comfort in having a baby, but we would do it, right? Most of us have done it again. It didn't scar us for the rest of our lives, but it's those kind of moments that we don't always have to hate doing the hard things. But think about a time when there was something that you had to go through that was really hard and you just spent the whole time resisting it. Kind of like, the example I gave about mowing the lawn or having to unload the dishwasher. Okay, the character and the discipline to just take care of our basic needs. Do you see how we make it so much harder on ourselves when we're just spending so much energy complaining and upset that it's even there in the first place? What if we had to just learn how to address our character differently and to deal with comfort differently? Not all comfort is bad, and not all comfort or character building is bad either. And how do you tell the difference? Another big wall I talk about is the wall of failure. We have a lot of definitions of failure. We have self-imposed failure. We have fears and misunderstandings about what other people have defined as failure. And then there's even just that. Maybe it's legit, totally, I hear from you that X, Y, and Z is failure. But to the other person, like, they've got to own it themselves. How do we separate out ourselves from other people? What's their definition of failure and what's yours? And is it actually a helpful definition of failure? Who says you're failing? What's another possibility? And the last one that I think is most important is lies. We are so walled in by our defeating attitudes and mindsets, the self-sabotage, the self-deprecation, the I'm not enough, the I have to do this all by myself, I'm alone, I'm the only one, nobody understands me, I'm not lovable. So many lies really at the core of our heart. And I think it truly is the heart of my coaching, is that we have to address at the very lowest, most centered, it's not the lowest, but right, like if we're looking at like an onion, right, those outer layers, each of those walls kind of get to the center of it, and the lies being the very center of those walls, and being able to figure out how to face them for ourselves. How do we face them and deal with them with our world and the people outside of us? What are we going to do with all of that information? I think of, kind of an analogy, I would say, The Lion King. Okay, if you haven't seen it, go see it. The cartoon version was a great one. I didn't really love the remake of the live action, but as a child, I loved watching The Lion King. But if you remember, if it's been a while since you've seen it, right? Simba ends up running away based on some misinterpretations, based on some lies, based on some fear about failure, based on some boundaries that he laid and decided, I cannot be with these people. Each of those kinds of walls are up, and you see it, you know it on the outside looking in, like, man, it wasn't his fault. But he blamed himself, and his uncle blamed him for his dad's death. His uncle fed him bold-faced lies. And he was too young to handle it. He was too young to be making those kind of lifelong decisions. He needed advisors in his life to help him. Had he gone to his mom to hear the truth, to hear a different side than what his uncle had to share? He leaves and has this whole life and is trying to run away from his past, living every day with this weight of what the world thinks of him and is expecting of him, of owning, like, this is my punishment, right? Can you see in Simba's world in that way how all of those walls just took him over? And until somebody was willing to come back and help him face his upsets. Like, what is he actually upset about? What's he believing about himself? What does he think was the boundary that was even honoring to his family? Like, he totally believed that this is what his family wanted, that they were better off without him. You know, what if there was a way to look back into your past and to be able to figure out for yourself, to separate all out a little bit more about what was your interpretation of your world, of what happened? Where were those misunderstandings and that miscommunication? Where was it where maybe the people and the grown-ups and the adults, the authority figures in our lives, were just not healthy enough to handle their own emotions? They were seeking after their own comfort and couldn't even handle addressing their own character, let alone helping you navigate your character. All of these things are workable. All of them are able to be acknowledged and addressed. And I think when you're ready, if you've been ready to be able to face them, knowing that there's healing on the other side, there's acceptance on the other side, there's community on the other side, there is love and forgiveness and connection on the other side. The pain that you're feeling by being walled off is harder, scarier, more difficult than the pain of facing those fears to take those walls down. You know, there's a thing that I say, I haven't quite figured out a way to say it succinctly, so I apologize. I'm trying to figure out how to say it easily. But it's like this. We will continue to resist the areas that we need to grow in until it becomes more difficult to refuse them. Does that make sense? It's kind of that comfort area where it's familiar, it's known. It might be really hard. It might be hurtful. We know it's not what we would like to have happen, but sometimes we choose that hard over the hard of doing the new thing. And until we are more frustrated, we are actually more irritated and bothered by the pain of avoiding than the pain of accepting. Only then will we start to really address those fears and start willingly participating in taking those walls down. There's a lot of freedom and a lot of healing to be had, and that's what I want for all of you. Being able to really own your choices, own your life, to set the record straight, even in your own mind, even if it means like, yeah, it was totally right, but what needs to be cleaned up? Where does there need to be some forgiveness? Where does there need to be freedom and to have healing? Does it really mean it's too late? Do we really believe that it's too late? Let's think about Simba for a minute, of how difficult it would have to be for him to go back. He had to first just see and believe that maybe, possibly, he had misunderstood the situation. He had to choose to believe that his family wanted him, even if they had blamed him for his dad's death. Okay. That doesn't mean they didn't want to have a relationship with him. Right? Like, maybe it was just an accident, but we know that that wasn't true. But you see how those are those lies? And I want you to know that even if what you've been believing was really true, and it's not a lie, and it has been told to your face, there is still freedom to be had to set yourself free from those. They aren't automatic disqualifications to having an amazing life, and to have healing, and to have personal responsibility and acceptance, and to go find people to be in community with. Simba goes back and gets to heal his village, heal his people. He gets to go back and get his family back and to repair the wounds, right? He also really had to accept, right, because he chose to leave, what the impact was on his family. They got twice as hurt, right? Like, they not only lost their dad, but they lost their son and the leader of their pride. They suffered because of his choices. And his willingness to face those mistakes, to face that failure, to face those lies, to face the miscommunication, he was met with love and forgiveness. He was met with acceptance. And I think more often than not, we're so afraid that we're not going to get that, when the majority of the time we will. And even if you've experienced that kind of rejection in the past, it doesn't mean you're guaranteed rejection forever. Maybe you have to just keep meeting the right people and reintroducing yourself, re-seeking, re-acknowledging what has been and what's happening. We are constantly maturing and growing as people. And I think even with the onion analogy, I remember I went through some sexual abuse when I was a young teen. And there was a lot of initial healing that happened in that. But every year, right, every future relationship, things that can still happen now, like, can still get triggered, that has to go back. It's a deeper layer that needs healing, and that's okay. So it's not one and done's. There's no arrival. There's no too late. And there's no good enough. There is just being on the journey and being willing to, every step of the way, to not give up, to keep facing our fears, to keep doing the hard things. And the very best thing that we can do, maybe not the very best, but I think we were not designed to do this alone. I'll go back to very best. It is the very best. To do it in community, to do it with other people. Ultimately, if you're someone of faith or you haven't gone down that path, to really get in alignment with God, that ultimately that's going to bring you the very most healing. We were not designed to be alone. And so if you need community, or you know somebody who needs community, please reach out. Follow me here to hear more. I would love to work with you. I would love to be able to continue to just lead by example. That was me this whole last year, and I'm not going to give it up, right? Like, I'm just still showing up and being honest. I have to still keep looking at what am I actually upset about? Where was the misinterpretation? What lie am I believing? Why am I feeling tempted to be failing? What does failure even mean in this moment? What's the boundary? That maybe there wasn't a boundary and now I need a boundary. This is a new circumstance. How are we communicating? How do I need to be in alignment now with myself and the people around me? So That is beyond the walls in a nutshell, I suppose. I love showing up here to be able to just keep speaking. And I think at the end of the day, we all are so much more alike than we are tempted to believe. There are safe people. There is healing to be had. And the best way forward is just being willing to face it and to face it with other people that can come alongside you and do it with you. Thank you for joining me today. I hope that brought you a lot of encouragement and some information to be able to apply to your own life and to start taking down those walls that are in your way. What is that one thing that you want to take on and take with you today? I would love to hear from you and to hear about it. Follow me here on the podcast so that you're alerted and don't miss any upcoming episodes. You can find me on Instagram or even on my website at beyondthewallspodcast.com. If you want more help, I offer one-on-one coaching and would love to connect with you. Until next time, have a great day.